Hello and welcome to The Lion's Den and our Demystifying AI podcast series. We're bridging the gap between overly complex AI chat and the more simplified understanding of us mere mortals. I'm sure that many of you understand bits and pieces in the world of AI, but perhaps lack a simple overarching view that pieces it all together. And importantly, you're looking to understand why and how AI could be essential in our respective worlds. We'll be here to hold your hand on that journey as we speak to key figures across a range of industries and functions. We'll explore their journey, insights, and practical applications of AI, from data scientists and engineers to business leaders, investors, and ethicists. We'll cover a wide range of perspectives, so let's get started. Hello and welcome again to our Lion's Den and our Demystifying AI series. So today we are super excited. We've got an absolute rock star of a highly experienced senior technology executive in Monica Aggarwal. And she was most recently vice president of ISV ecosystem and technology partnerships at IBM. So a huge role working with a broad spectrum of partners and providers, and working across a range of industries. And of particular relevance to this conversation will be the development of significant portfolio of AI products whilst leading this kind of 2 billion plus P&L that she's been looking after. And she's also been part of the IBM Ventures team, which is focused on new technologies and investing in early stage companies and things like that. So a huge and rich background to draw from, I'm sure, Monica, and really good to have you on. Thank you for joining us. I guess to start, I always ask for a little bit of an introduction. I've given you a very short one, but it probably wasn't quite doing you justice. So do you want to maybe give us a little bit of an intro to yourself and say hi to the listeners?
Sure. Hi, Rupert. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be in the Lion's Den and unravel AI as we go along. I think a little bit about my journey. Back when I decided to pursue an engineering degree in computer science and then later a management degree in marketing, I don't think I really realized that it'll take me on a very, very interesting journey. And I think what it has done is it has allowed me to thrive at the intersection of technology and business. So a significant part of my career was spent at IBM, both in US and India, doing a diverse spectrum of roles from leading global engineering teams across software and infrastructure to ecosystems, leading strategic partnerships and alliances, cutting across AI and cloud. And I think because this podcast is focused on AI, I had some very interesting experiences a couple of years back, not too far back, in creating early cognitive systems, integrating NVIDIA GPUs into our cognitive servers, and then developing machine learning software to accelerate training and inference workloads, to creating, I would say, infrastructure as a service solutions for clients because they wanted a hybrid cloud experience. And then more recently, launching partner programs and go-to-market strategy, then again, creating a very interesting lineup of AI products. So I guess looking back, I think three things have always driven me. How do you bring an outside-in perspective? How do you lead with innovation? Because it's just hard to take the engineer inside out of me. And then creating exponential value. So very thrilled to dive deeper into the world of AI with you today.
Great. Thanks, Monica. And I always ask this question because we have a lot of people who are very versed in technology on this podcast. And I always ask the question, what does AI actually mean to you? And the reason for asking that is because I think for very technical folk, it's really easy to talk about it in extremely technical terms. But, if you pare it back, what is AI in its simplest terms? Because it's such a buzzword, but, in reality, what is it to you?
Here's how I'd like to think of AI. Picture a world that's transformed by, waves of technological revolution. First there was the Industrial Revolution that brought in steam power and mechanization, and it basically propelled us into this age of mass production. Then came the Digital Revolution. It brought personal computers, internet. The information became digital and instantly accessible. The third came Internet Revolution, which enabled connectivity, and it brought e-commerce and social networking. And then the fourth revolution was really a mobile revolution that practically put a computer in everyone's pockets, and that brought the rise of smartphones and applications. Now, if you see the common thread, every revolution brings massive shifts that fundamentally change how we live, work, and interact. And today, we are standing at the cusp of AI revolution. I think it's a cataclysmic shift which promises to drive not only efficiency and productivity as everybody's touting, but I think it also drives this thirst for consolidating all the knowledge, bringing in connectivity, the convenience and accessibility. And as I was thinking about this, I was actually reminded of this quote from the movie The Matrix, when Morpheus tells Neo, the Matrix is everywhere. It's all around us, even now in this very room. I think AI somehow feels like that, omnipresent. So I think that's what I feel about AI.
Okay. All right. Okay. So it's a new dawn then. It's a new dawn. But I think one of the problems with that is, and this is probably one of the inherent issues with AI today, is that it seems so ubiquitous. It seems so all covering that people don't really know how to interact in the new world. And I imagine it's pretty similar to the Industrial Revolution and people not really knowing how to deal with machines in those days. So I think if we think about the application of AI, that's where the rubber hits the road here. So can you maybe talk to some of the specific applications that you've used AI for or that you've come across in your industry? Because I think that's what makes it easier to understand when it's so ubiquitous and everyone could touch it or feel it somewhere in their lives.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the why behind generative AI or AI in general, it'll fall into a couple of, there are a couple of reasons. There's accelerated product development. There are new personalized customer experiences, not only, bringing revenue growth and operational efficiency. So if you were to do a cross section across, some of these use cases we've seen, I think the number one use case, where AI has impacted is customer service, because it cuts across industries from retail to banking to airlines. And I think it brings a great promise of efficient and personalized support and experience with faster resolution times. The ability to supplement your human agents with data to help resolve customer queries faster. And I think there are inherent gains for both the customer and the company. I remember we were working with an enterprise mobility partner who was looking to create seamless onboarding experiences for their new employees, because every new employee had a mobile device. And then how do you create a very proactive device diagnostic experience versus, having your regular help desk, logging tickets, and then waiting for it to be turned around? So I think that was a big use case that we saw. I think one of the other use cases we saw was the voice of the customer. How do you analyze a user experience, an employee experience, or a customer experience and create satisfaction around products and services, looking at piles of structured and unstructured data? It could be survey data, it could be, your social media content, your conversation logs. How do you cover trends and insights to serve them better? So that was another, a big use case. Look, we've already seen content generation. I think it's taken all the industries by storm, generating high quality content from product descriptions to blog posts to social media posts, right? Or even creating product recommendations and assisting customers with product search. So I think there are a lot of these use cases, but I think most use cases can either leverage your ready to use, as you call LLMs, or, which are great at producing responses to your natural language prompts. But there are also a lot of these industries and use cases where you want the best performance, very precise data. Things like healthcare. How do you do patient care and help AI assist in diagnosis and prediction? Or you minimize prescription errors or triage prioritization. I think we've all seen how AI has contributed to drug discovery when we had the pandemic come in. Or analyze chronic conditions with medical imaging, creating an early diagnosis and insight. So I think those are some of, very important, I would say, strategic and prioritized mission critical applications, where we want to leverage AI. I think another example that we saw was in industries like legal, finance, or contract lifecycle management, where you need precision and deep domain knowledge experience. Now, imagine going through hundreds of pages of contracts, to understand what's the state of jurisdiction for my contract. What is the penalty clause? When is the renewal for the contract coming up, right? So you can fundamentally use a lot of these, you can create a lot of these use cases that are very critical for AI. I remember I was talking to the CEO of a contract lifecycle management company, and he said two things very important. He said, Monica, contracts don't live on the internet, and they live in companies' databases. So you're going to train them on specific data that's sitting as proprietary data with these companies. So I think those are some of the use cases that we've seen from an industry perspective.
So you raise an interesting point about proprietary data, and I think in some of the other conversations we've been having on this show, what we've come across is a clear delineation between the ability of an LLM or some kind of a effective version of an LLM to be generating value through its intelligence that it's learned from scraping the entire internet or whatever training or learning it's been through. But really, when it comes to enterprise, you need to be extremely specific and targeted to your customer set. And of course, to do that, you need proprietary data. And much of that proprietary data, most enterprises will not want to be used to train a model. So can you talk to maybe a little bit around how you see that future evolving between the meshing of proprietary quality data that is very relevant to the use cases of the individual enterprises, but also not being in a world where that is used to train and becomes relevant. And I think I heard back in a little while ago that there was a situation where there was an employee that sort of put something into the LLM about their deal, around the way in which they were constructing something. I think it was Samsung or something. And then, of course, out the back end of that, it was a significant problem because that then was knowledge in the entire model, which people could gain through anywhere on the internet. So maybe you could talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, look, I think the interesting point that you bring up is LLMs versus what other models are we seeing. I think, when ChatGPT came out, it put LLMs in everybody's hands because it was trained on a, very broad-based set of data across all of the internet, right? And I think it may be good for a lot of end consumer specific applications, like, you want to, understand how to respond to an email, or you want to understand how to create a travel itinerary, right? So I think there are specific use cases where you can use broad generic data sets. But I think more often now, when you're working on enterprise grade use cases, I think this concept of small language models has come up. So LLMs versus small language models, because I think it's important to understand what is the size of the model you want to look at, what is the complexity, what is the contextual understanding, or is it specific to a certain domain like finance or legal or contracts, right, or automotive, for example. What are the inference speeds and risk of bias that you have? And more importantly, what's the resource consumption that you need? So I think we're starting to see a lot of companies coming forward trying to get their own data and fine-tune their models, fine-tune an existing model with specific proprietary data that they have to create these function-specific use cases and serve the needs of the customers and partners out there.
Okay. And how do you feel that their customers feel about their data being used? I mean, you call it proprietary to the enterprise, but if the enterprise is serving customers and clients, right, it's their data as well. Does this sort of lead us into a somewhat ethical kind of quandary around who owns what data and who can use which data in which circumstances? And should there be rules and regulations around this?
Oh, I can tell you. I mean, just the ethical considerations from an AI perspective is a whole big field by itself. It's a really big topic. And I think it's important because, look, the primary objective of AI is not just to help solve complex challenges, increase productivity, but also do it in a manner that's very accurate, it's ethical and equitable, because you want to promote social justice and equality at the end of the day. So you want to make sure that AI as a superpower in the hands of people is not creating a trust chasm, right, by through disinformation or privacy or security. So I think creating ethical practices, and more importantly, what data you train it on, whose consent you have from a data perspective. Is it synthetic data? Is it your existing data that you can leverage across the board? I think those are very, very important data points that all the companies have to focus. One of the things that we say is your output is as good as the input. So the output that your model generates is as good as the data you train it on. So things like transparency, right, about how are you making sure that the AI system's decision-making process is visible to the users? What are some of the challenges you have around data provenance and standardizing and establishing methods to verify where your data is coming from? Are your data sources even trustworthy? Because it can lead to a lot of reputational, legal, and financial risks. How are you going to explain why a model generated a certain answer? How are you going to reduce the bias? Is there an output bias? Because are some of the communities, groups, and individuals treated unfairly? Or is there a decision bias, right? So I think there are a lot of these privacy and trust topics that need to be handled very carefully when you look at data, when you look at models and generating use cases and outputs out of that.
This is interesting because I wonder whether we move into a world where there are so many, I guess, proprietary-driven LLMs that customers and clients, when they interact with those companies, will almost want a kind of a reference sheet, a bibliography, as it were, of a scientific paper, which says, this is the model we use to serve you as our customer, and these are the data sources which we have drawn from, and this is the requirements that we put in place to ensure that there is good ethics around the use of that data, and it's held in the right way, or it's trained in the right way. And I wonder whether, either because it's driven by regulation, which seems a little more further forward in Europe than it is in the USA, or if it's just driven by ethical considerations of the enterprises knowing they need to do this right, whether we're going to start to see that sort of thing. Do you think that's a possibility? Is it happening already even?
Oh, I think you're going to start seeing that. I wouldn't say it's happening completely out there, but eventually what we will see is, designing a responsible AI is not going to be an afterthought. It will need to be fundamentally ingrained from the start of your thought process to, in execution all the way till the end. And it's going to be a great public-private partnership as well. I think there's going to be a combination of regulatory frameworks with AI acts coming out, companies being held responsible for what they generated. So I think we're going to see, this is a very evolving, topic. I think we will see a lot that's happening here in this area.
I also want to go back to something you mentioned earlier when you talked about the legal industry and contract review and things like that. And it is definitely something that's talked about because it's a very heavy process to review legal documentation, etc. And you were talking about it in the context of proprietary contracts and that data being held within an organization. But the legal industry is often brought up when it comes to AI as well, because it talks about employees and the nature of AI and how it's going to shift the workforce. And the quandary that we often end up with is, up until about a fifth year in a law firm, an individual who's there for the first 5 years can probably be replaced by AI's capabilities today. The issue is that when they hit that fifth year and AI effectively tops out on its ability to do, kind of very systematic review tasks, that then you don't have anyone who's been trained as a person who can actually become that lawyer that needs to do the more complex, more perhaps emotive things that sit in the way you think about law and things like that. So do you have any views on, more broadly, the world of employment and how it's going to be upended by AI, or not even, if it's just going to be supplemented by AI?
Yeah, look, I do think we are in an era where I think AI will drive us to embrace change. And I think it fundamentally behooves in us to think about what the workforce of the future will look like in an AI era. Just the fact that AI is a very cross-disciplinary concept, I think we have to think about what kind of skills and enablement are we going to do for our workforce? What kind of new roles will emerge? Because some of the roles we all know will become redundant. Yes, there is a lot of fear about it, but I think the question is, what are the roles that are going to get created in the future? It was interesting. I was looking at a couple of things, and one of the roles that is, is starting to be talked about is an AI ethicist. It's a classic example of, knowledge of ethics with socio-technical considerations of technology. And I think every single industry, every single field will have to think about what are the new kind of roles that they will need, given that we are going to start, living in a very integrated man-machine world. So I think the question on the table is, what do we want the workforce of the future to look like in an AI era?
I think that's right. And maybe you can just talk to one very specific thing that's come up all over the place, which is, do companies need a chief AI officer, or is it just rhetoric?
I think we absolutely need a chief AI officer, because you do need somebody at the table with the leadership stakes to understand what the AI strategy will be, how will it evolve, and who all will have aspects of AI impacting their roles. So I remember when we were looking at some of these industry use cases, there was a whole big shift in terms of how we thought about our buyer personas, right? Rather than trying to sell a technology to an IT, a CIO, right? We were talking to chief product officers. We were talking to chief technology officers. We were talking to chief revenue officers, the chief business development officers. So you pretty much see the need of a chief AI officer to come and have a seat at the table and pull the whole AI strategy together and make sure it's successful, make sure it's equitable, and it targets the right use cases for their clients and partners.
So let me stay on this one just for a moment more. So that I get that. That sort of makes sense. Someone to tie it together from an AI perspective, and it is, as we talked about, is ubiquitous. We need to be all over it. There is also a question of yes, but where does that person come from? Because 5 years ago, the world looked very different, and this person hasn't just emerged from nowhere. So are they a technical leader? Are they a CTO? Are they a data leader? Have they been a data analytics person, a data science person? Are they a product person? Or are they all of the above, and you just happen to find this unicorn who's done all of these things over the last 30 years of their life? You see the conundrum. I'm making light of it, but you see the conundrum, of course, in that situation.
Oh, absolutely. Look, here's what I can tell you. I think the chief AI officers need to come from diverse backgrounds, but they generally should have expertise in technology, data science, or product management. Now, the specific background can vary based on the company's need or the industry or whatever career path. But I think if I just were to break down those backgrounds from a technology perspective, they absolutely need to understand and have expertise in AI and machine learning, right? They could have been previous chief technology officers or head of AI, or maybe research scientists, or come from machine learning background, because they're bringing deep technology that allows them to oversee the development and deployment of those technologies. Now, if they're bringing in, let's say, data science background, they're bringing in things like data analysis and modeling, right? So these could be chief data officers or, heads of data science or data analysts. So there's another data science piece that comes in. And then people who come from a product management experience or a product strategy and development experience, they understand how to align AI technologies with your business goals. So they've seen the development of AI-driven products and meeting market needs. And these are your chief product officers, product managers, head of product development. So I think it's having somebody who has that hybrid background, combining the technology expertise with the product and data science, I think is a great profile for a chief AI officer.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. I think we'll see, right? We'll see how that sort of unfolds over the years. So look, you talked about products there, and obviously that's an important part of potential AI officer's role. But obviously you've got a pretty diverse experience in terms of thinking about products and how they apply to the partnerships that you have and have had at IBM. How has AI played into that portfolio over the years? And indeed, how has it changed in the last year or two? Because I suspect there's been quite a dramatic shift.
Oh, absolutely. So, one of the things that happened is because of the diversity and the spectrum of, the roles that I have done across IBM, I had a great experience working with some of the products. Let me bring an interesting example for when I was leading the partnerships, both for ISVs and technology partnerships. One of the interesting things was, what should we really focus on? And I think we started with a perspective of, let's listen to our partners and see what are they looking for before we go and decide, here's a product and here's a partnership strategy we want to focus on. So we went around listening to partners across the globe, and the common theme that emerged was they were looking to transform their user experiences. They wanted to leverage AI that was simple, easy to integrate, provided flexibility to deploy across many clouds. So we thought about, so they're looking for enterprise-grade AI products. So we ended up creating an embeddable AI portfolio. They had conversational assistance. It had observability to look at applications across the stack. It could generate insights from data. And it also had products around visual inspection. And these were existing products, but we created a portfolio called embeddable AI because any partner could use it to embed it in their solutions and then take it to market. And another interesting piece was when they looked at some of these things, because they were looking for simple and lightweight products that cut across form factors from applications to APIs to libraries, we also ended up releasing 3 new products around natural language processing, text, and speech. So back to my point on creating user experiences, we actually leveraged a combination of product-led growth and product-led sales approach to bring product, marketing, field sales, all of these together. We created free trials, demos, and developer experiences that fundamentally accelerated their productivity and time to market. And in parallel, we also looked at how do we bring the entire organization together with us, because marketing had a front and center seat to create demand gen with a balance of outbound and inbound marketing. We had massive collaboration with product and engineering teams to create these new products, and that's why we were able to get them out fairly quickly in a matter of months. And then we ended up launching and overhauling and creating a new partner program with accelerators, investment and funding for partners, and a co-sell strategy to jointly win with them. There's a saying, it takes a whole village to raise a child. I think it was something like that, where we needed the massive power of collaboration of the whole organization to come together and succeed. So that's how I would like to think of the user experience journey and having creating winning use cases in the market.
So it's interesting because I guess in the situation you're in there, you're providing a portfolio of interesting technology-driven products to a bunch of clients who are also using those to support their revenue generation from their clients. How do you connect the dots between what is value for them and what you are building? Because what's often leveled at technology companies is you build a load of stuff because you can, and then try and find a use case afterwards. Was there a kind of flow there where you actually engaged with the clients and said, what's the problem that you're dealing with, or what is the opportunity that you're seeing? And then you work backwards from there to then understand what your portfolio of AI products should look like to serve those needs?
Oh, absolutely. Look, my remit was software and cloud both. And when you look at software, it encompasses data and AI, automation, security, and sustainability offerings, right? So let me give an example. Maybe that'll help better. Mm-hmm. We were partnering with an IT services and a consulting company. And when I talked to their chief technology officer and chief revenue officer, they shared some key data points. They said they were having high employee turnover, right? The employee salaries were, rising double digit. The training costs were high. They were dealing with structured and unsearchable data. The workforce was distributed, and there was low resolution of customer issues, right? So when you look at the pain points of the partner, we said, how can we help you? And they were looking to see, is there an opportunity to integrate AI technologies into their portfolio, right, which could increase, let's say, the number of tickets closed per agent, automatically classifying or categorizing the tickets and assigning them severity 0, 1, 2, 3. Is there an opportunity to train their new employees faster with all the data that they had, which could lead to increased employee retention and then better client satisfaction? So you can see from a perspective of when we looked at and talked to a lot of these global partners across all the geographies, there was a very common theme that emerged where leveraging AI, made the right sense for us to create those product portfolios and go to market with.
Okay, so now let's talk about the other thing, the other elephant in the room when it comes to AI, which is just because you can, should you on account of the cost? So did that play into the conversation as well? I mean, obviously you're selling the stuff, so it's fine by you. But is there a kind of a way of saying, look, the reality is that you can have this incredible outcome for your employees or your customers or clients or whatever it might be. And by the way, it's going to cost you an inordinate amount of processing and compute power to deliver on that, and perhaps not going to balance out with the incremental value you're seeing from the exercise. Did that play into the conversation, or were you a little bit more like, well, we'll work out the cost point at the end and hopefully it all works out?
I think it comes right in. There is no way you can not have the discussion or it doesn't come in, because at the end of the day, the question, Rupert, is always about what is the return on investment a partner is getting when they go with you versus a competitor, or not doing anything at all, right? And there were three ways we thought about it. Some of the partners that we talked to were like, we're just going to develop it ourselves from scratch. And my question to them was, I think that this is an important build versus buy decision for you. And I think you want to think about what's your core competency. Is your core competency going and, creating and designing AI from scratch, which means, go looking for AI skills in the market, which are already in short supply, versus trying to do something which is your core competence. So I think there were important build versus buy questions. There were important questions on the pricing and costing of it. There were important questions on what is the end experience you want to get and what is the growth that you're trying to drive along with productivity and efficiency. So I think there's a combination of factors that helps people decide, am I getting the best bang for the buck if I go with a particular vendor A versus a vendor B? And that's true for all technologies. That's true for all decisions that anybody makes.
No, of course. I think one of the things that makes it much harder is because this technology is expanding and changing at a much more rapid rate than any previous technology. So when you put together a use case or a cost basis or any of these things, normally where you might have had a 3-year time horizon or something like that, and you could justifiably say this is where we're going to be, this is changing so quickly that you need to have some level of confidence that you're actually recognizing where this technology is going and integrating that into your plan. So how do you think about the future generation of AI and when that happens and what does that do and how does it change everything?
Yes, so let me, going back to the previous piece, I think we have, we've seen over, because, we are, the kind of technologies we worked at are cross-industry, they're industry agnostic, but for some of these industries like, IT services and customer service, we actually saw very significant data where ticket resolution times, increased, actually decreased by 20%, right? The employee retention went up drastically, I would say 15% or so. So I think there were very good benchmarking numbers where we had. And from our previous reference wins, we were able to showcase to customers as to what we saw in terms of success for their own industries and use cases. Now, coming back to the future of AI, let's ground ourselves in some facts and numbers. IDC, I think, projected in 2023 that the Gen AI solution spend would be around $19 billion, which would go to about $150 billion by 2027. That's a 5-year CAGR of 85% upwards, right? I mean, just look at that massive growth. And when I say Gen AI spend, it includes everything from software to related infrastructure and hardware to IT, business, and services. Now, just yesterday, I woke up to watching NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang's keynote at Computex trade show at Taiwan yesterday. And he used the term computation inflation, which basically means the exponential growth in data is creating a need for a new kind of accelerated computing because the traditional computing cannot keep up. So you now need bigger, faster, specialized processors from GPUs to TPUs to DPUs and NPUs, pick your favorite one, with advanced interconnects to create a very new kind of AI systems that can be deployed on-prem, in the cloud, to the edge and beyond. So I think in spite of the fact that we are in very early stages of AI, there are very interesting dynamics that are emerging. The competition is heating up across every layer of the stack. I think it's something like fast and furious. And you're seeing a massive spark and spurt in models and model gardens to software and services at the top. Now, I think it'll drive a couple of things. You will see a new kind of data centers because data center capacity will need to be built out, right? Right now, AI constitutes a very small percentage of the global data center footprint, but that will change because imagine all these traditional old systems sitting there, and now you're going to retrofit it with AI, right? So that will drive, a whole new set of renewable power advancements from wind and solar and thermal to how will electricity transmission and distribution happen to, affordable power supply. So I think that's the data center capacity is a whole big piece there. Then you already have seen, I think, Rupert, the rise of multimodal models from Gemini to ChatGPT-4 Omni. Now they can take variety of inputs from text, images, audio, video, and convert those prompts into various kinds of outputs. You can now do visual question answering, or VQA as we call it. You can give it, let's say, your favorite picture of your shoes and say, hey, get me a great dress with it, or vice versa, right? It can reduce barriers for visually impaired to access information. You can do great image retrieval or do a video search and ask the video for a specific timestamp and start the video from there. So I think you are now seeing AI that's coming with advanced reasoning, problem solving, and generation capabilities, even conversing in a human-like voice of your choice, to generating full-blown charts and statistical analysis. So I think that's another area that I see. The third I have, starting to see is just new routes to market and new partnership models. I think just last week, PwC became OpenAI's largest enterprise user with 100,000 users, and also the first reseller, right? So first SaaS reseller there with OpenAI. An interesting partnership example I saw was when Dell announced AI factories in partnership with NVIDIA. Right now, AI factory is nothing but building the most advanced large-scale AI, which is a fully integrated solution, brings in Dell's compute, storage, networking across workstations and laptops with NVIDIA's advanced AI infrastructure for enterprise-grade use cases. Now, so you can see the scale of where AI is going. If you watch the demo of the humanoid robot making coffee, I think it's just mind-boggling to imagine where AI will go. So I think we all have to brace ourselves for a new kind of world where, man and machines will just coexist.
Good. Well, let's hope we coexist and it doesn't get into some kind of Terminator 2 style overhaul by the machines. I'm pretty sure we're not going to get there for a while, but let's hope we put the controls in place before we get there. So look, Monica, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I think there's a lot to think about there, and the reality is that, and I hope you'll kind of agree with me a little bit on this, that whilst the future seems very exciting, I don't think any of us really know what it looks like, and I think anyone who says they do when it comes to AI is sorely mistaken. So the most important thing is that we just think about what could the art of the possible be, we prepare ourselves in the right way, and we educate ourselves in terms of how we think about how we can make our businesses or even our lives better. And I think that's the purpose as well. Of course, as you know, of this podcast, it's been really helpful to have you coming and talking about how you see AI in the present and also in the future. So I guess all that leads me to say is thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure our listeners do as well. So thanks again, and hope we speak again on this soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Rupert, for having me on the podcast. I think if there's just one takeaway I have for our listeners, from an AI perspective, I would say, with great power comes great responsibility. So I think be curious, learn about it, integrate it into your life, and be very intentional in terms of how you develop, deploy, and use it.
I think that's 100% correct. And then, as you say, let's not use it for sort of malevolent usage or something like that. That would be awful. We're as bad as the machines then when they take over. Anyway, I digress, of course. Okay, all right, Monica. Well, thanks again, and appreciate you joining us. It was fantastic.